Hi, it's Patrick Hutzel from intensivecareathome.com.au, where we provide tailor-made solutions for long-term ventilated adults and children with tracheostomy by improving their quality of life, and where we also provide tailor-made solutions to hospitals and intensive care units to save money and resources whilst providing quality care. In last week's blog, I evaluated when should you consider home care for ventilated adults or children with tracheostomy. You can check out last week's update by clicking on the link below this video. In this week's blog, I want to shed light on the 3 mistakes intensive care units constantly make but they are unaware of when they are looking after long-term ventilated adults and children with tracheostomy. Having extensive experience in both areas, a clinical intensive care environment as well as having experience in the intensive home care environment has given me a unique outlook and a different perspective in the area of intensive care and the issues that come with the environment. It's also given me plenty of perspective and insights into how most of the pressing problems when it comes to long-term ventilated adults and children with tracheostomy can be solved. Having worked with many long-term ventilated adults and children with tracheostomy in both an intensive care environment and an intensive home care environment has also made me realize that many long-term ventilated adults and children with tracheostomy are missing out on home care because intensive care units tend to continuously make 3 distinct mistakes. Let's quickly shed some light on those mistakes. Number 1. Intensive care units don't think that home care is a real possibility. Number 2. Intensive care units are waiting far too long to make referrals to external service providers such as intensive care at home. And number 3. Intensive care units let the ventilator dependency stand in the way of looking at opportunities and possibilities for patients and their families in a home care environment. One of the biggest takeaways for me over the many years in intensive care and also when working with long-term ventilated adults and children with tracheostomy in an intensive home care environment is that most long-term ventilated adults and children with tracheostomy in intensive care can go home with the right support structure and with the right mindset. Many situations in intensive care where intensive care patients are either in a situation where they are going through a long-term weaning process or a lifelong ventilator dependency, or even if they are going through an end-of-life situation where they are kept in intensive care on a ventilator, can be managed at home with specialized services such as intensive care at home. This paradigm totally shifts the focus from an intensive care environment to a more holistic, a more patient and more family-friendly environment where the clients still receive equivalent care in a place that they call home. Think about it. A bed in intensive care costs $5,000 per bed day, and long-term ventilated adults and children with tracheostomy are in an environment where they don't want to be. They are blocking a precious and expensive ICU bed, and families of those patients have to put their lives on hold while their loved one is in intensive care. Modern business solutions are all about creating win-win situations, and intensive care at home has created such a win-win solution in this niche area. What are your thoughts? Do you think that intensive home care can eliminate some of the mistakes intensive care units are making when it comes to long-term ventilated adults and children with tracheostomy? Leave your comments here on the blog or send me an email to patrick@intensivecareathome.com.au. Please also note that Intensive Care at Home has been selected as a preferred provider for Queensland Health Services as part of the recent Hospital in the Home tender. You can also contact me on 041 094 2230 if you want to know more about how we can provide our tailor-made solutions for you or for your patients and for your intensive care unit, of course. Thank you for tuning into this week's blog. This is Patrick Hutzel from intensivecareathome.com.au, and I'll see you again in another update next week.